The bell chimed when Kurt Cobain stepped into Skin-Deep Tattoo on a gray January afternoon in Seattle's Capitol Hill. The shop smelled like antiseptic and ink, punk rock blaring from speakers covered in band stickers. Behind the counter sat a man in his late 30s, arms covered in black ink, minor threat shirt stretched across broad shoulders, shaved head, thick beard. He looked up from sketching, and his eyes went cold. "We're booked," he said flatly. Kurt stood in the doorway, hands in his cardigan pockets. "I just need something small. Shouldn't take long." "Booked solid. Try someplace else." Kurt looked around the empty shop. No other customers, no appointments book visible on the counter, just this hostile tattoo artist pretending to be too busy for him. "Look," Kurt said quietly, "I can come back another time if you're actually—" "I said we're booked." The man set down his pencil and met Kurt's eyes. "Let me be clearer. I don't want your business. I don't want you in my shop. There's the door." Kurt should have left, should have found another tattoo shop in a city full of them. But something in the man's voice, in the particular flavor of his contempt, made Kurt stay rooted to the spot. "Did I do something to you?" Kurt asked. The tattoo artist laughed harshly. "You don't even know who I am, do you?" "No." "Ray Connors. I was in The Accused. We played basement shows all over this city before it became a marketing term, before MTV decided grunge was the next thing to sell to suburban kids." Kurt's stomach tightened. "I watched this scene get built," Ray continued. "We did it because we loved it, because it meant something. Then you come along, put distortion on pop songs, and suddenly you're the voice of a generation. You sold out every DIY punk ideal for money and fame and magazine covers." Ray's hands were clenched now, knuckles white. "Do you know how many actual punk bands couldn't get shows after Nirvana blew up? How many venues started booking only grunge acts because that's what sold tickets? How many of us watched everything we built get co-opted and commercialized while you cried about how hard it is to be famous?" Kurt stood very still, absorbing the anger being directed at him like physical blows. "So no," Ray said. "I'm not going to tattoo you. I'm not going to take your money or participate in whatever image you're trying to cultivate. Find another shop. Find someone who doesn't care that you helped destroy everything they loved." The silence that followed was heavy. The punk music from the speakers seemed too loud now, filling the space between them. Kurt moved to one of the chairs against the wall and sat down. "I'm not leaving." Ray stared at him. "Excuse me?" "You clearly have things you need to say to me, so say them. I'll listen." "I don't need to say anything to you." "Yeah, you do." Kurt looked up at Ray with those pale blue eyes that had stared out from a million magazine covers. "Because you're angry about something specific, and it's not just about me, so talk. I've got time." Ray opened his mouth, closed it, then laughed again, that same harsh, humorless sound. "You want to know what I'm angry about? Fine, I'll tell you." Ray walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out a worn folder. Old show posters from the mid-'80s spilled out, The Accused playing with the Melvins, with Soundgarden, with bands that never left the Pacific Northwest. "That was a scene," Ray said. "We played for beer money, slept on floors, shared equipment. We built something that mattered." He picked up one flyer. The Accused, the Melvins, and Nirvana, April 1988. 30 people showed up. You remember that show? Kurt looked at it. He did remember. Vaguely. One of their first Seattle shows. "I watched you that night," Ray said. "You were terrified. Your hands were shaking so bad you could barely hold your guitar. But there was something there, something raw and honest. I thought, okay, this kid gets it. He understands what we're doing here." Ray threw the flyer back onto the counter. "And then Smells Like Teen Spirit happened, and suddenly you were on MTV every hour, and suddenly every kid in America was buying flannel shirts and pretending to be from Seattle, and suddenly the scene we built was a trend, a fashion statement, a marketing demographic." "I didn't ask for that," Kurt said quietly. "Didn't you?" Ray shot back. "You signed with a major label. You made videos for MTV. You played stadium shows. At any point, you could have said no. You could have stayed independent, stayed true to what this scene was supposed to be about. And what was it supposed to be about? Not selling out. Ray's voice rose. Not compromising, not letting corporate America turn rebellion into a product they could sell back to us. Kurt was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You want to know what the tattoo is I came here for?" Ray blinked at the subject change. "What?" Kurt pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to Ray. It was a sketch, simple but carefully drawn, the letter K with an X through it. "What is this?" Ray asked. "It's the logo from the first pressing of Bleach," Kurt said. "Our first album, the one we recorded for $600, the one we released on Sub Pop before anyone knew who we were, before MTV, before everything you're talking about." Ray looked at the sketch, then at Kurt. "I want it tattooed over my heart," Kurt said. "Because that album, that time, that version of Nirvana, that's the one that still feels real to me. That's the one I want to remember when everything else feels fake." Ray set the paper down. "So what? This is supposed to make me think you're still punk? One tattoo and you're authentic again?" "No." Kurt's voice was steady. "This is supposed to remind me of who I was before I had to think about whether I was authentic or not. Before every choice became about selling out or staying true. Before making music became this complicated thing that everyone had an opinion about." Kurt stood and walked to the counter. "You think I don't know I sold out? You think I don't wake up every day wondering how I went from sleeping in my car to sleeping in hotels? You think I'm happy about it? If you're so unhappy, give the money back. Quit." "It doesn't work like that." Kurt's voice cracked. "You can't unknow what it feels like to have millions listening. You can't unfame yourself. You can't go back to when 30 people in a basement was enough." Ray's arms were still crossed, but something in his posture had shifted slightly. "I didn't set out to destroy your scene," Kurt continued. "I didn't wake up one day and decide to commodify punk rock. I just wrote songs that came from the same place your songs came from being angry and sad and not fitting in. And then other people decided those songs meant something bigger, and I got swept up in it." "You could have said no." "To what? To making enough money that my daughter doesn't have to grow up poor like I did? To having a platform to talk about things I care about? To being able to make music without worrying about rent?" Kurt's voice rose now. "It's easy to talk about purity and principles when you've never been offered the choice. When success is theoretical, you can decide you'd never compromise. But when it's real, when it's right in front of you, it's a lot more complicated." Ray was silent, his jaw working. "You want to know the truth?" Kurt said. "I miss playing basements. I miss shows where I could see everyone's face. I miss when music was just music and not this symbol of a generation or a movement or whatever people decided it represents. But I can't have that back, and punishing me for it doesn't give it back to you either." The shop was quiet, except for the music still playing from the speakers. A song Kurt didn't recognize, fast and angry and pure. Ray finally spoke. "The Accused broke up in 1992. Did you know that?" Kurt shook his head. "We couldn't get shows anymore. Everyone wanted grunge bands, and we were too old, too hardcore, too actually punk for what grunge had become. So we called it 20 years of music, and it ended because the scene we built got turned into something we didn't recognize." "I'm sorry," Kurt said. "Sorry doesn't help." "I know." They stood there, two men on opposite sides of a divide neither of them had chosen, but both were trapped by. Then Ray did something unexpected. He picked up Kurt's sketch and studied it again. "You really want this over your heart?" "Yeah." "Why?" Kurt thought about it. "Because Bleach was the last time I made music just for me. Everything after that was for someone else, for fans, for critics, for the label, for Courtney, for everyone except me. I want a reminder of when it was still mine." Ray set the sketch down and walked to his tattoo station. He started preparing equipment, laying out ink, cleaning needles. Kurt watched, uncertain what was happening. "Sit," Ray said, gesturing to the tattoo chair. "You're going to do it?" "Yeah." Ray didn't look at him. But not because I forgive you or because I think you're still punk or any of that shit. I'm doing it because I understand wanting to remember who you were before everything got complicated. Kurt sat in the chair. Ray positioned him, cleaned the skin over his heart, and placed the stencil. The intimacy of the moment felt strange after the hostility of minutes before. "This is going to hurt," Ray said. "Good." Ray raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The needle buzzed to life and he began working. Kurt closed his eyes and felt the pain of the needle, sharp and focusing, real pain, physical pain, the kind that had a clear source and a clear end. For the next hour they were silent, except for occasional instructions from Ray to breathe or stay still. The tattoo grew line by line, the K with its defiant X taking shape over Kurt's heart. When Ray finally sat back and wiped away the excess ink, the tattoo was perfect. Simple, clean, exactly what Kurt had drawn. "There," Ray said. "You're marked." Kurt looked down at it in the mirror Ray held up. The skin was red and angry around the fresh ink, but the symbol was clear. A piece of his past literally inscribed on his body. "Thank you," Kurt said. Ray was cleaning his equipment, his back to Kurt. "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "Do you actually miss it, the before times? Or is that just something you tell yourself to feel less guilty about the success?" Kurt pulled his shirt carefully over the fresh tattoo. "Both, probably. I miss the simplicity. But I also know if I went back, I'd probably hate it because I'd know what else was possible. There's no winning. You either stay small and wonder what could have been, or you get big and lose what made it special in the first place." Ray turned around. "That's the most honest thing you've said." "Yeah, well, honesty is the only thing I've got left that doesn't feel compromised." Kurt paid for the tattoo. Ray charged him double his normal rate, which Kurt paid without complaint, and headed for the door. His hand was on the handle when Ray spoke again. "Connors." Kurt turned. "I still think you sold out. I still think Nirvana destroyed something that mattered. But..." Ray struggled with the words. "I get that it's more complicated than I wanted it to be. And I get that you're trapped in it same as the rest of us, just differently." Kurt nodded. "Your band, The Accused. You guys were good, better than good." "Yeah, we were. For what it's worth, I'm sorry it ended the way it did. The scene eating itself wasn't supposed to be part of it." Ray almost smiled. "Yeah, well, punk rock was always about destroying things. I guess we just forgot to specify what we wanted destroyed." Kurt left the shop as the gray January afternoon was fading into evening. Under his shirt, the fresh tattoo burned against his chest. The K with its X, a reminder of who he'd been when music was still simple, still pure, still his. He knew the tattoo wouldn't change anything, wouldn't make him more authentic or less sold out or more connected to the scene that Ray mourned. But it was something real in a world that felt increasingly fake, something permanent in a life that felt like it was constantly shifting beneath his feet. And as Kurt walked through the rainy Seattle streets toward his car, he thought about Ray Connors and The Accused and all the bands that never made it. He thought about how success and failure were more complicated than either extreme wanted to admit. He thought about how you could be right and wrong at the same time, how you could sell out and still care, how you could lose something precious even while gaining everything you thought you wanted. The tattoo over his heart would heal in a few weeks. The questions it represented would not. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the discomfort was what kept you honest. Maybe never being satisfied with your own choices was the only way to avoid becoming the thing you feared most, someone who stopped questioning whether they'd done the right thing. Kurt drove home through the rain, marked permanently by a conversation with a man who hated what he represented, but understood, just barely, what it cost to represent it.